Problem 4 says to estimate the area under the curve of f of x equals sine of x between x equals 0 and pi over 2 using left endpoints of 4 rectangles of equal width. And then make a rough sketch of the graph and use it to decide whether your estimate is an over or an underestimate. So I'm going to start by sketching our graph. So sine of x is a graph you should know. And since we're only going from 0 to pi over 2, that's just in the first quadrant. And sine of x goes through the origin and curves up, and at pi over 2, it's at its peak. So here is 0, here's pi over 2. The width, delta x, is going to be b minus a over n. B is pi over 2, a is 0, and we were told to use 4 rectangles. So the width of each of our rectangles is pi over 8. We're using left endpoints, so we'll start at 0, then we'll add pi over 8. When we add another pi over 8, we get 2 pi over 8, which is pi over 4, 3 pi over 8, and then we stop because we've got our 1, 2, 3, 4 rectangles. So I'm going to come on my scale here. Pi over 4, right, is right in the middle. There's pi over 8. And here's 3 pi over 8. So now, when I sketch my rectangles, I'm using left endpoints. So the leftmost endpoint of my first rectangle here is at 0. Well, the function has a height of 0 there, so we actually just get a horizontal line. There's actually no rectangle there. For the second rectangle, this is going to be our height. For the third, and for the fourth. So we draw across, and draw across. So this is the desired area that we want. And I can already see from my picture that I'm going to get an underestimate because there's gaps between the rectangles in the function. So the height of each rectangle is f of whatever its k value is. So we'll have 4 heights. And once again, since I know the widths are all the same, the area is going to be pi over 8. I can factor that out, and it's sine of 0 plus sine of pi over 8 plus sine of pi over 4 plus sine of 3 pi over 8. And I can clean this up just a little. We know sine of 0 is 0. I don't know what sine of pi over 8 is, not a known value on the unit circle. Sine of pi over 4, however, is square root of 2 over 2, and sine of 3 pi over 8 is also not a known value on the unit circle. So it's about as good as we can get it, and we can see from the sketch it is an underestimate.